AOC.
Yeah, but first, I think we should have a moratorium on white dorks on Zoom calls.
Okay.
You know, we have like
Done.
We have Fastest and we have fan mail, and I just can't listen to those Nate Silvers and these Saliza people just bites into this glorious show. AOC. What? She's kind of fun in a silly but earnest, wrong but adorable way. She's like your daughter when she comes back from her first year at Brown, full of half-baked, half opinions.
So there she was again, Alexandria Ocasio.
But what she really means is that
she was again, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, walking into the public arena with the confidence of someone who just discovered Wikipedia and decided to run the economy off the fun facts section. And just when you thought it couldn't get more absurd than her pretending to understand economics, along comes Greg Gutfeld with the rhetorical equivalent of a fly swatter and a smirk, ready to clean up the circus.
In need of some gentle, patient deprogramming. But people have to realize new faces doesn't mean new ideas. Drives me crazy. AOC has never introduced a fresh idea or issue in her life. The reason why she gets along with Bernie is because she's like an 80-year-old leftist in a used bookstore. I mean, she may look fresh, but she's as stale as an abandoned futon on the street. It's like, I listen to her, I go, I heard that at Berkeley in 1983.
So, it started like every classic AOC moment does, with a camera, a microphone, and absolutely no idea what she was talking about. She was on one of her usual crusades, this time explaining, with the enthusiasm of a freshman who just read Das Kapital, how billionaires are evil, money is fake, and we can solve everything by screaming, tax the rich, louder than reality. But then came good Gutfeld, the man with the comedic timing of a roast master and the patience of someone who's had to listen to AOC explain interest rates like they're a social construct.
Yes, I pay people to wear handcuffs. But she did this because she knew the media would obey. Let's watch the tape. You know, she'd be a great mime, like the Latina version of Marcel Marceau. In fact, here she is later in her jail cell. Of course, AOC was mocked on social media for imitating being handcuffed, which is a change from her usually being mocked for imitating a congresswoman.
Imagine AOC, armed with her signature look of bewildered outrage, passionately arguing that jobs are a capitalist myth and that the economy should function like a group project. Everyone gets an A, even if nobody does the work. Gutfeld, sipping metaphorical tea, watched this ideological piñata swing wildly at invisible enemies. And like any good satirist, he didn't need to argue. He just watched her unravel, giving off the same energy as someone trying to program a VCR using interpretive dance.
Meantime, AOC has taken a break from doing nothing to get into a beef with the Twitter chief. On Tuesday, she tweeted, LMAO at a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that free speech is actually an $8 a month subscription plan. That's a reference to Musk's plan to charge people $8 a month for verified blue checkmark status. But he hit back tweeting, your feedback is appreciated, now pay $8.
And of course, she brought up the Green New Deal again. Yes, the legislative fever dream where airplanes are banned, cows are canceled, and we all live in eco-friendly yurts powered by feelings. AOC pitching this plan for the 738th time is like watching someone try to sell a haunted blender. Confusing, slightly scary, and mostly noise. But Gutfeld? He doesn't need to fight it. He just lets the math fail her. Because when she says, it'll pay for itself, what she really means is, I haven't opened Excel since college.
To be fair, she'd love to spend the $8, but she already bought a Tesla. He also tweeted a photo of some ugly AOC merch she's trying to hawk for $58. Overpriced merch, AOC. Seems pretty capitalistic of you, which according to you makes you evil. And according to anyone paying attention, also makes you full.
Oh, there's something so gloriously ironic about AOC passionately dismantling an economy she clearly doesn't understand. It's like watching someone try to fix a car by aggressively yelling at the hood. And the best part? She always believes she's the smartest person in the room, which is adorable in the same way a toddler thinks they've invented time travel because they found the microwave timer. Gutfeld, though, is a different breed. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't interrupt. He just waits for AOC to trip over her own buzzwords like someone trying to do a TikTok dance in ski boots. And then, with the elegance of a stand-up comic and the accuracy of a sniper, he dismantles the nonsense line by line. It's not even a debate, it's performance art. AOC brings the chaos. Gutfeld brings the popcorn.
The reason why they don't have any ideas is they operate on half opinions. Like, what if we get rid of cash bail? Oh, let's do it. What happens? You have repeat criminals wreaking havoc. What if we have sanctuary cities? Hey, let's do it. What happens? You have rapists and killers, finding sanctuary, safe haven. What if we give trans rights that we don't have? Well, you just ruin women's sports, you ruin safe spaces, you make kids' lives hell, but they never think about what their ideas incentivize. That would be nice. So where are their ideas gonna come from?
Let's not forget the performance she put on while defending her economic ideas, because nothing says serious legislator like furiously gesturing while explaining how unlimited government spending is basically monopoly money with better fonts. Meanwhile, back on Earth, inflation is acting like it's on a Red Bull bender, and grocery prices are cosplaying as luxury items. But sure, let's double down on the economic wizardry of someone who thinks scarcity is a capitalist myth. At one point, she floated the idea that jobs should be guaranteed by the government, because what could possibly go wrong with a bureaucratic hiring process slower than a tortoise in molasses? Picture the DMV, but now it's your employer, and your lunch break is decided by a committee that only meets on alternating Wednesdays. Gutfeld, without so much as adjusting his tie, practically airlifted viewers straight out of the fantasy land AOC was selling. No passport required. It was like watching someone rescue hostages from an escape room made entirely of vegan slogans, Marxist memes, and inspirational quotes from failed group projects. AOC had set the stage with her usual fever dream policy theater, but Gutfeld came in with the energy of a sarcastic paramedic. No panic, no yelling, just calmly escorting the confused masses out of a burning building made of combustible talking points.
I love how she explains it. They're not meant for you, right? But then you have to ask, okay, then what is this debt forgiveness? Who is it meant for? And when you look at the data, it's upper, white, middle-class, liberal women. This ain't welfare, right? These are well-to-do people. It's a bribe for Democrats on the backs of plumbers, truckers, and everyone else who actually does a real job, unlike me. AOC is the symbol of the entitled sponge. She complains about student loans, but she owns a test.
It's
Her
all just
economic
emotional
proposals,
games.
they sounded like they were hashed out at a kombucha-fueled seance, where the spirit of Karl Marx was channeled through a TikTok influencer. Let's print more money, and everyone gets free stuff. Sure. And while we're at it, let's declare gravity optional and see what happens to air travel. Gutfeld didn't even need a clever retort. He simply held up the mirror, let the absurdity breathe, and AOC's logic collapsed under its own artisanal, gluten-free weight. Her supporters? Suddenly quieter than a Whole Foods during a power outage. Not a peep, just stunned silence and the distant hum of a broken espresso machine. And then, the grand climate panic segment made its usual appearance, her signature dance of doom, like Al Gore's PowerPoint but with more eyeliner and fewer facts. The Earth, according to AOC, is on life support, being nursed back to health by hashtags and reusable straws. 10 years left, she cried again, in what's starting to sound less like science and more like a recurring dream she refuses to wake up from. At this point, even the guy who built the doomsday clock is probably begging her to hit snooze.
And worse, she owns a French bulldog. Thanks to Cat Temp, I know everything about French bulldogs. And one thing I know, they are so expensive. They're more expensive than any college tuition. That you got to take care of them. They're adorable dogs. But she owns a Tesla and she owns a French bulldog. And she wants you or your dad, the electrician, to forgive her student loan. That's BS. Turn in the Tesla, sell the dog. I'll buy it half price.
But Gutfeld, unbothered, just blinked slowly, like a man who's heard this prophecy too many times at too many brunches hosted by people who own crystals and blame capitalism for their avocado going bad. He pointed out, in that dry, devastating way of his, that every time AOC makes a climate speech, somewhere a solar panel calls in sick from secondhand embarrassment. She's the only person who can talk about wind energy and somehow sound winded, suggest nuclear power, and she recoils like you just insulted her kombucha starter. Then came the piece de resistance, her solution to economic inequality. Not jobs, not innovation. Nope, the vibe economy. Just crank up the money printers like it's Coachella for currency, hand out checks like Oprah on stimulants, and voila, equity achieved. Even people who list manifesting as a job description were confused. Her economic vision is basically a Spotify playlist called Chill Marxist Beats to Deconstruct Capitalism too.
So by now you heard that AOC, among others, were arrested last night. She truly is an American hero. It was brutal, taken out in cuffs. Well, technically, her shirt had cuffs. Maybe French cuffs, as she did surrender without fighting. But if her pants had cuffs, she would have pretended to be in leg irons too. But real handcuffs, not so much. But that didn't stop her from pretending, and I hate it when people do this to me. When I ask people to put on handcuffs and they say, "I'll just pretend I have them on," I'd be like, "Sure, and I'll pretend to pay."
Gutfeld, arms crossed, didn't need a bar graph or a laser pointer. He just raised an eyebrow, the universal symbol for, "Are you seriously saying this out loud?" And with that, he reminded the world of something radical. The laws of economics aren't seasonal trends. You can't solve inflation with vibes. Fix supply chains with positive affirmations. Or expect GDP to rise because your chakras are aligned. And oh, let's not skip the glorious irony of AOC warning people about the evils of capitalism while wearing designer clothes, live streaming from a $3,000 apartment, and sipping artisanal matcha. Capitalism is evil, but her Wi-Fi is strong and her lighting impeccable. If hypocrisy were renewable energy, AOC could power the entire tri-state area. Gutfeld casually pointed out that she criticizes big corporations, yet happily uses every single one of their platforms to blast her message. It's like someone boycotting Starbucks while holding a venti caramel macchiato. And the way she fancies herself a voice for the people, despite having the relatability of a Netflix character written by AI. Chef's kiss.
As water, but what do you make of this?
I don't know. I mean, it's always fun to see, a leftist yell at a leftist. But there is kind of an interesting flip going on here where hardcore leftists are in bed with the hawks. A lot of them are. And then you're seeing the right trying to slow the roll of nuclear war. Some analysts are putting at the odds of a nuclear event at 25.
Then there's her bizarre obsession with banning things. Gas stoves?
Gone.
Pickup trucks? Problematic. Free speech? Only if you agree with her. It's like she's playing a game of Dictator Simulator, but forgot she's not actually in charge of anything other than her next Instagram live. Meanwhile, Gutfeld has made a cottage industry out of pointing out that her entire political strategy is built on hashtags, slogans, and guilt tripping. If you disagree with her, you're a fascist. If you ask for math, you're a bigot. If you bring up actual data, she claims you're using violence. It's a funhouse of emotional manipulation wrapped in a sweater and framed by ring lights. AOC constantly warns us about the rich while cashing six-figure government checks, racking up book deals, and walking red carpets like she's auditioning for the real politicians of DC. But don't worry, she's still oppressed. Just ask her publicist. Interview. And when she isn't preaching from her eco throne, she's busy attacking anyone with a shred of logic, like they're the final boss in a feelings-based video game. Gutfeld simply lets her talk and waits, because eventually, like clockwork, she'll contradict herself, then call it nuance, then accuse you of being racist for noticing. You really have to admire the consistency, though. No matter the topic, climate, economy, race, gender, space travel, sandwich pricing, AOC finds a way to circle back to blaming capitalism, billionaires, or whatever Republican made the mistake of looking at her Twitter feed. It's like a Mad Lib sheet filled with buzzwords and no nouns. And Gutfeld? He doesn't debate, he delivers autopsies. By the time he's done, AOC's arguments are less revolutionary ideas and more Pinterest quotes with delusions of grandeur. And while she continues to ride the outrage carousel like it's powered by sustainable unicorn tears, Gutfeld just watches, amused, like someone observing a squirrel trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. Interview. Let's not forget her greatest hits: crying in front of empty parking lots, pretending to be arrested by politely walking with police, or dressing like a socialist Marie Antoinette at the Met Gala, while wearing Tax the Rich, stitched into a dress that costs more than your student loans. AOC's entire brand is basically, do as I tweet, not as I do. Meanwhile, Gutfeld's only real weapon is reality, and that's all he needs. Because when AOC gets a platform, it's like a TED Talk hosted by Tumblr, and every time she speaks, an economics professor somewhere dies a little inside. Watching Gutfeld handle AOC's greatest hits is like watching a cat play with a laser pointer. She runs in circles chasing ideological phantoms, while he calmly shines the light of logic onto her contradictions, watching her spiral into performative rage. Interview. She talks about justice like it's a coupon code, and public policy like it's improv night at a vegan cafe. But Greg just listens, smirks, and lays down the rhetorical equivalent of a steel trap. No need for yelling. No need for a fight. Just pure, unfiltered. You really thought that made sense, didn't you? And every time she speaks, she gives him more material than a Netflix comedy special. Whether it's proposing economic reforms that would bankrupt a lemonade stand, or suggesting global diplomacy should be solved with emojis and good intentions. AOC is the gift that keeps on giving. Greg doesn't destroy her because he's cruel. He destroys her because the contrast is just too easy. It's like comparing a calculator to a fortune cookie.